Some people don't disappear physically. They disappear emotionally. They answer your messages. They sit in the room. They smile when needed. But somehow, they still feel far away. Like a part of them is always somewhere else. And the strange part is, most of the time, they don't even realize they're doing it. People often think emotional detachment means someone doesn't care. But that's rarely true. Because emotionally detached people usually feel deeply. Sometimes too deeply. So deeply that their mind learns to create distance. Not to hurt others, but to protect itself. Emotional detachment is not always coldness. Sometimes it's exhaustion. The exhaustion of feeling too much for too long. The exhaustion of carrying emotions that were never fully processed. And eventually, the mind does something interesting. It lowers the volume. Not because emotions disappear, but because surviving feels easier. When everything becomes quieter. Some people grew up in environments where emotions felt overwhelming. Too much tension. Too much unpredictability. Too much emotional pressure. And when a brain experiences this repeatedly, it adapts. Not by becoming stronger emotionally, but by becoming less emotionally available. At some point, distance starts to feel safer than closeness. Because closeness creates vulnerability, and vulnerability creates risk. The risk of disappointment, rejection, misunderstanding, loss. So instead of opening fully, they stay partially closed. Not intentionally, automatically. The difficult part is, most emotionally detached people don't know where the wall came from. They just know it exists. A quiet distance between them and everyone else, even the people they love. When emotions become uncomfortable, some people stop feeling them directly. Instead, they analyze them. They think about emotions instead of experiencing them, which is why emotionally detached people often sound calm, even when something hurts deeply inside. It's like standing outside during a storm, but watching it through glass. You can still see everything. You know the storm is there, but you no longer fully feel the rain. Emotionally detached people often fear depending too much on others. Because depending on someone means they can affect you. And if they leave, they take a part of your emotional stability with them. So the mind slowly learns. Need less. Expect less. Feel less. But here's what most people misunderstand. Emotional detachment does not create peace. It only creates numbness. And numbness is not the same thing as healing. Because deep down, emotionally detached people still want connection. They still want to feel understood, safe, seen. But the closer someone gets, the more uncomfortable it becomes. So they pull away. Not because they don't care, but because closeness activates the very emotions they've spent years avoiding. And after a while, emotional distance stops feeling temporary. It becomes identity. I'm just not emotional. I'm better alone. I don't need anyone. But sometimes, those sentences are not personality. They are protection. And protection can slowly become isolation. The strange thing about emotional detachment is that it rarely feels dramatic. It feels normal, quiet, routine. You stop explaining your feelings. You stop expecting people to understand. And slowly, You become someone who carries everything alone. At first, this feels like strength. No emotional chaos. No dependency. No vulnerability. But over time, something else disappears too. Warmth. Presence. Connection. Because when the mind blocks pain, it often blocks closeness with it. Emotionally detached people don't always avoid others. Sometimes, they avoid themselves. The emotions they never fully faced. The memories they buried quietly. The parts of themselves that still feel hurt underneath the calm surface. Some people become detached after giving too much emotionally for too long. Always understanding others. Always staying available. Always carrying emotional weight. Until one day, their mind simply stops reaching outward. Not because they became heartless. Because they became tired. Emotionally detached people often become experts at looking okay. They function normally, work normally, talk normally, but internally, there's distance between them and their own emotions. And eventually, even happiness can start to feel muted. It's like turning the volume down on pain, and accidentally turning the volume down on life itself. But here's the important part. Detachment is not permanent. Because emotional walls are learned. And anything learned can slowly be unlearned. Healing does not mean becoming emotional overnight. It means feeling safe enough to stop hiding from emotions. Safe enough to stay present without shutting down. Safe enough to let someone close without immediately preparing for loss. The deeper fear is not rejection. It's exposure. Being fully seen. Because emotionally detached people often think, if someone sees the real version of me, they may not stay. So distance becomes control. And control feels safer than uncertainty. But eventually, something starts to feel empty. Not dramatic emptiness. Quiet emptiness. The kind that appears when survival becomes your entire personality. Because surviving and living are not the same thing. You are not emotionally detached. Because you are broken. You adapted. Your mind learned distance to create safety. But safety without connection can slowly become loneliness. And maybe the goal was never to feel less. Maybe the goal was simply to stop carrying emotions alone. Because real strength is not emotional numbness. Real strength is staying open. Even after life taught you to close. Some people protect themselves by building walls. But walls don't only block pain. They also block love, understanding, presence. And the longer someone stays emotionally distant, the harder it becomes to remember what closeness once felt like. Because emotional detachment was never the absence of emotion. It was the mind's quiet way of surviving too much for too long.